Now, there's always confusion in the gas industry, but Registered Gas Engineer or Gas Safes magazine April edition has kind of sorted one out for me. So, my name is Derek Robbins from Tomcat Gas Training, and let's find out exactly what this magazine has sorted out for us. So let's get on with it then. So, Gas Safe have issued a technical bulletin 161, which is actually testing the inlet pressures of a cooker. Because one of the main questions I get asked all the time is, do we need to put test points when we're installing a cooker? So, 161 is going to tell us whether we do or whether we don't. But this little implement is what we're going to be using to comply with Technical Bulletin 161. Now, one of the main culprits for this confusion is BS 6891 2015. Because when this came out, it basically said that gas engineers were responsible to make sure that the gas supply supplying the appliance was adequately sized. Now then, when we're installing a cooker on a natural gas supply, we have a gas meter to be able to gas rate the appliance. But when we're doing LPG, there's normally no gas meter for LPG, so you can't gas rate. You're relying on inlet pressures. But if there's no inlet pressure test point on a cooker, so you can't test inlet pressure. So this little injector thing has been invented, so we can replace the injector on the cooker and be able to screw this in, connect our manometer onto it and get our inlet test points to see whether it's adequately sized or not. So if we haven't got a meter on LPG and we haven't got a test point on a cooker, how do we know whether we have got less than a 2.5 millibar drop across the pipework to the appliance then? Anyway, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how to check it. So let's get on with it finally. This is the cooker we're going to be doing these tests on. Now the tools I'm going to need are, this is a 7mm extended socket. We've got an 8mm open end and ring spanner. Or we could have actually just used an adjustable spanner. We're obviously going to be needing this test point. We're also going to need a digital manometer. And also I'm going to be using my TPI SP620 connected to the meter so you can see via my phone what readings I'm getting at the meter. Now, one of the pieces of equipment I wouldn't advise you to use when you're doing this test is the good old U gauge, because even though this has got a stand on it, which is the lid, as you can see, it's not the most stable thing in the world, and this test could actually turn out to be dangerous for you. I have known a couple of trainees actually set themselves on fire trying to do this test. So my advice to you would be follow out a risk assessment doing this test, because you might deem it too dangerous to do it. So if the manufacturer gives you some readings for these tests, then try it. But you can see while we're going through this test why this could be dangerous. Also, some cookers, when you press the gas tap in, the ignition starts. So make sure you check whether it does, and if it does, isolate your electrical supply after you've lit the burners, because you don't want to electrocute yourself while you're doing this test. So my advice is, if you don't have to do this test, don't do it. But if you do need to do it, follow a risk assessment and make sure you keep yourself safe. You have been warned. Now let me show you what I deem the dangerous way first. So first of all, I've got my TPI SP620 connected to my gas meter, and you can see I've got a standing pressure of 25.91 millibars. So first thing I'm going to do is obviously make sure all this is cold before you remove it. So we'll take off the retention ports. Now I need to get on the injector, and I'm going to use my digital manometer So just turn it on, make sure it's on millibars, which it is, and it's reading 0. Now I have to get the tube in the right location over the injector. And if you don't get it in the right place, you could actually let gas leak out and it could go over to the burners. Because we need to light these 2 burners, because remember, when you're doing working pressure at the meter of a cooker, you need the 3 largest rings on. Now, first of all, I've got my power on and I'm going to light this back right. And I'll light this back left. Now I've got the 2 burners on, I can turn my power off, and I've got a working pressure at the meter so far of 22.01. Now I have to connect my hose onto the injector and not squeeze the pipe, because if you obviously squeeze the pipe, you're going to get a reading, and this is the dangerous bit, because we've got to turn the gas on. So it's this one. So if I turn it on, I can hear the gas coming out. Could be dangerous. So I've got a working pressure on this injector, I don't know whether you can see that, of 20.5, and I've got a working pressure at the meter of 22.19. But I don't know whether we've got gas leaking out of there or not. It's not set my hand on fire yet, but I just don't like that test at all, trying to do it off the injector. So, shall we see if this makes it any safer and easier to do? I'm sure it does. Now let's remove this injector. So I've got my little ratchet with my 7mm extended socket. Get it onto the injector, and that's undone pretty damn easy. Put that somewhere safe on there. Now I can connect my little extended test point thing and get my 8mm spanner. There are a couple of flats on here, so I could just gently nip it up, not too tight, but we don't want it to leak. Now I can get my hose right the way on, so it's giving it a really good tight fit, that. So I need to turn my power back on, and I can turn that back one on, that one on. I can now isolate the power supply, and I can turn this burner on fully, and I've got a reading of 21.2 millibars this time, and I've got a reading at the meter of 22.1. I've got a 1 millibar drop, or just under a 1 millibar drop, between the meter and this appliance. So 21.2, 22.07, pretty good to me. And this little extension seems to make it so much safer to do this test. So my advice to you would be, get on eBay where I did and go and buy one of these little extension test nipples, so you can comply with Technical Bulletin 161. But is there another way we can do it? Let's have a look. So you could put a test point down here and an isolation point just before it comes into the bayonet. But that's not a good idea. You would have to really put it down here where the hose actually connects to the cooker. That would be the best place to put a test point, and you can buy specific test points to go into that position. So there's a couple of other ways you could do it. Now, Technical Bulletin 161 will give you all the procedures we've just done. Now, do I deem this test necessary? Well, if I'm doing LPG and I haven't got a gas meter, then yes, I could have to do this test. But if I've got a gas meter there, and the flame picture looks good, and the gas rate's good, and my working pressure at the meter's good, and if I operate a boiler nearby and it doesn't affect the flame picture, then do we need to go to the dangerous situation of doing this test? So this little thing, which cost me just over £5, will help massively to keep you safe when you're doing this test. Because like I say, is it necessary? I would say 99.999% of the time, no. But there are certain circumstances when gas pipe has been undersized when you might need to do this. So that's my look on 161. If you want to catch any more videos, then why don't you look at this one down here. Catch you on the next one, guys. Cheers.